For as long as I can remember, I've been the odd one out in my family. Not because I'm irresponsible or a troublemaker, quite the opposite, actually. I've always been the financially cautious one, the one who doesn't splurge on luxury just because it's trendy. My parents, on the other hand, are enthusiastic spenders. They're not reckless, mind you, they pay their bills and manage to save a little, but their idea of necessary expenses is vastly different from mine. A brand new luxury SUV every 3 years? Just reliable transportation. Annual vacations to Europe? Cultural enrichment, of course. Membership at the country club? Essential for networking. Me? I drive a 10-year-old sedan that's fully paid off, takes me where I need to go, and rarely gives me trouble. I take vacations by camping at state parks, grilling burgers under the stars. My idea of a splurge is a really good cup of coffee, not a designer handbag or a 5-star resort. My parents just don't get it. It started with subtle comments, a raised eyebrow when I pulled up to family gatherings in my old car, chuckles from my sister about my practical clothes. Then it escalated. "Are you sure you're okay?" Mom would ask, her voice dripping with concern whenever I turned down an expensive dinner. "You look pale. Are you eating enough vegetables?" My dad was more direct. "Hey, still driving that classic of yours?" he'd say at family barbecues, winking at my uncles. "You know they say what's old is new again, though I think yours is just old." Everyone would laugh. Everyone but me. It wasn't just the car. It was everything. My apartment, cozy, small, and in a modest neighborhood, was a source of pity. My clothes, comfortable and practical, were mocked for not being designer. My hobbies, hiking, reading, and enjoying nature, were considered boring. It was like my entire lifestyle was a running joke. The irony? I wasn't struggling, not even close. As a software engineer, I made a comfortable salary. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was planning for my future. Investing, saving, and building a nest egg, all things my family seemed to consider quaint. What my family never bothered to find out was that a significant portion of my income had been quietly flowing into their pockets. Yes, the same people mocking my practical choices were benefiting from them. It started years ago when my dad's business hit a rough patch. I offered a loan to help out. They promised to pay it back, and they did, eventually. Then came another rough patch, a new car, a home repair. Loans kept coming, and repayment became less consistent. Somewhere along the line, the loans stopped being repaid altogether and became expected. I felt trapped, guilt-ridden, fearful of disappointing them, and honestly, afraid of becoming even more of an outsider. So I kept giving. But every joke, every snide remark about my cheap car and modest choices chipped away at me. Then came my 30th birthday. I was sitting in my small, cozy apartment, looking at my latest investment statement. My portfolio had grown significantly. Years of saving and investing had paid off. My net worth was impressive, more than anyone in my family would guess. And suddenly I snapped. I was tired of being made fun of for being financially responsible. I was tired of subsidizing their luxurious choices while they laughed at mine. That night, I sent an email. "Hi Mom and Dad. Effective next month, I will no longer be able to provide financial assistance. Love, Alex." I hit send and braced for the fallout. My heart pounded, but I felt a strange sense of liberation. The next morning, my mom's reply came in. "We received your email. We'll discuss this at the family reunion next month." I knew what discuss meant. It meant ganging up on me until I caved. I wasn't planning to cave. This time, I was going to stand my ground. The family reunion was always a big deal, relatives flocking to my parents' suburban home for a weekend of awkward small talk and forced togetherness. This year would be different. I arrived in my old sedan, parking it next to my dad's brand new SUV. I could feel the tension the moment I walked in. My dad greeted me with a strained smile, my mom with pursed lips. The first few hours were all surface-level politeness, but I could sense the simmering resentment. I knew they were saving the confrontation for after dinner, and I was ready. I had my secret weapon, a printed copy of my latest bank statement, carefully tucked into my briefcase. When my dad finally cleared his throat and began the inevitable, "We need to talk," speech, I didn't flinch. "Why did you cut off the support so suddenly?" he asked, trying to sound reasonable. I took a deep breath. It wasn't sudden. It's been years of helping out, and I need to focus on my own life now. My mom cut in, her voice tight. But you know we count on you. You didn't even warn us. That's not true, I replied. I've warned you many times. You just never listened. When my dad scoffed and called me dramatic, I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, exhausted laugh. Dramatic? You've mocked me for years for being responsible with money while happily accepting mine to cover your lifestyle. You made me feel like a failure for not spending recklessly like you. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the bank statement. Just so you know, here's the reality of my modest lifestyle, I said, handing out copies. The room went silent as they scanned the numbers, eyes widening in disbelief. As my parents stared at the bank statement, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. My dad's face went pale, and Mom's mouth hung open in disbelief. I had spent years putting up with their criticism, their jabs about my practical choices, while quietly ensuring they never lacked anything. How do you have this much saved? Dad finally stammered. I shrugged. Simple. I don't blow my money on cars I can't afford or vacations I can't justify. Mom's eyes narrowed. Are you trying to make us feel guilty? I didn't flinch. I'm just showing you that my choices weren't because I was struggling. They were because I was planning for my future. Something you should have done a long time ago. My sister Chloe, who had been watching silently, glanced at the paper and let out a low whistle. Damn, Alex. I didn't know you were loaded, she muttered. I raised an eyebrow. Not loaded. Just responsible. Dad rubbed his forehead, clearly trying to process everything. We just thought, that you were having a hard time. You never acted like you had money. That's because I wasn't flaunting it, I replied. I was saving it, investing it, making sure I had a cushion. I didn't want to end up in a situation where I had to rely on someone else. Mom shot back, her voice defensive. We didn't rely on you. You offered to help. I did. Once. When Dad's business took a hit. Then it became expected. You never asked, you just assumed I'd keep covering expenses. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but Chloe jumped in. Honestly, Mom, Dad, you guys never noticed. You just kept taking, and Alex kept giving. You didn't even question why he wasn't spending money on himself. Mom glared at her. That's not true. We never forced him to give us money. I sighed. No, you didn't force me. But you made me feel guilty when I didn't. I wasn't going to let you lose the house or struggle to pay bills, but I never thought it would become permanent. Dad looked down, his pride clearly wounded. I didn't know you felt that way, he muttered. Well, now you do, I replied, not softening my tone. The room fell silent for a moment, tension heavy in the air. Finally, Chloe spoke up. I always thought Alex was just being stubborn. But now I get it. You guys never gave him credit for being smart about money. You just kept making fun of him like he was some charity case. Mom turned to me, her expression a mix of shame and irritation. Why didn't you tell us how much you had saved? Because it wasn't your business. I was taking care of myself. I never expected to be taking care of you, too. Dad's eyes hardened. We're your parents. We did everything for you growing up. And I appreciate that, I said calmly. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to fund your lifestyle. I've helped enough. Now it's time for you to handle your own finances. I could see the wheels turning in their heads, the realization sinking in that I wasn't backing down this time. I didn't feel triumphant, I just felt tired. Chloe, ever the pragmatic one, shook her head. Honestly, it makes sense. You guys have been living beyond your means for years. Maybe it's time to reevaluate your priorities instead of leaning on Alex. Mom bristled. You're taking his side now? Chloe shrugged. It's not about sides. It's about facing reality. You can't just expect Alex to bail you out forever. The conversation fizzled out after that. Mom and Dad retreated to the kitchen, muttering to each other, while Chloe stayed behind. She gave me a sympathetic smile. I know they're stubborn, but they'll come around. I think this just hit them harder than they expected. I nodded, appreciating her support. Thanks for backing me up. She patted my shoulder. You deserved it. I always knew you were smart with money, but I didn't realize just how much you'd been helping them out. They needed this wake-up call. That night, I left the reunion feeling emotionally drained but oddly lighter. As I drove home in my old sedan, I reflected on what had just happened. I wasn't sure if my parents would truly change their mindset, but at least I had finally spoken my truth. When I got back to my apartment, I checked my phone. A message from Chloe was waiting for me. "Hey, just wanted to say I'm proud of you. You did the right thing." They needed to hear it. "Love you?" I smiled, grateful that at least one family member understood. I typed back, "Thanks, Chloe. Love you too." Before heading to bed, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. For once, I had stood up for myself without caving to guilt. I knew it wouldn't be the last of the conversations about money, but at least the first step was done. The next morning, Mom texted me, her tone surprisingly calm. "We'll talk more later. Your dad and I need to figure some things out. Thank you for being honest with us." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. I replied with a simple, "Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." As I sipped my coffee, I realized that I didn't just hand them a bank statement, I handed them the truth. Whether they accepted it or not was up to them. The days following the family reunion were surprisingly quiet. I had half expected Mom to call with more guilt-tripping or for Dad to double down on his pride, but instead, nothing. Even Chloe texted me, admitting that things at their house felt tense. I wasn't sure how to feel about the silence. Part of me felt relieved, but another part was worried that it was just the calm before the storm. I tried to focus on my own life, work, catching up with friends, planning a weekend hiking trip. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. One evening, just as I was about to head out for a run, my phone buzzed. Mom was calling. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, honey," she said, sounding unusually subdued. "Can we talk?" "Sure," I replied cautiously. There was a long pause. I could hear her take a deep breath on the other end. "Your father and I have been talking. About what you said at the reunion." I braced myself. "And? It hit us hard, Alex. We didn't realize how much we've been leaning on you," she admitted. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. "We're not proud of it. We never wanted you to feel obligated to take care of us. It's just, when your dad's business struggled, we got used to the help. And then, I guess, we didn't think about how it affected you." I couldn't help but feel a small pang of sympathy. "I know you didn't mean to, Mom. But it's been years. I kept giving because I love you, but it felt like you never saw my effort, just my choices. You kept making me feel like I was somehow failing because I didn't spend money like you did. I didn't see it that way," she whispered. "We thought you were just being stubborn." Dad's voice came on the line next. "Son, I'll admit, I didn't see it either. I was so focused on keeping up appearances, I didn't notice what it was costing you. I thought we deserved better because we'd worked hard. But maybe we lost sight of what really mattered." I couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. Was this an actual moment of clarity? "I appreciate you saying that, Dad. I never wanted you to struggle. I just wanted you to respect my choices, too," he sighed. "We shouldn't have mocked you for being careful with money. You were doing it right. We were just too stubborn to see it." I felt a small weight lift off my shoulders. "I'm not cutting you out," I clarified. "I'm just setting boundaries. I can't keep financing things when I'm trying to build my own life. I want to help when I can, but not at the cost of my own stability." Mom sniffled. "That's fair. We're proud of you, you know. We just didn't say it enough. We were too busy focusing on the wrong things." For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the outsider. "I just needed you to see that I wasn't living a sad life. I was just being responsible," I said softly. "We see that now," Dad admitted. "We should have respected you more." After we hung up, I sat on the couch, trying to process it all. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was progress. I texted Chloe to update her. "Mom and Dad actually apologized." "Sort of. They said they understand now." Her reply was quick. "No way. That's huge. I knew they'd eventually get it. You did the right thing. I just hope it sticks." I texted back. "Me too. But hey, you made your point. They needed that wake-up call. Later that week, Dad called me on his own, a rare occurrence. "Hey, Alex," he started, sounding hesitant. "Your mom and I are going over our budget. Trying to cut back on some things. Thought you'd like to know." I smiled despite myself. "That's good, Dad. If you need tips, I'm happy to help." He chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, we might take you up on that. Just wanted to say we're trying." "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." That weekend, I invited Chloe over for dinner. As we cooked together, she gave me a teasing nudge. "You know, you kind of broke their brains, right?" I laughed. "Yeah, I guess I did. But it needed to happen." "Absolutely. You've been too nice for too long. They needed to see that you weren't just being cheap, you were being smart." We ate, talked, and caught up on life. It was nice to have at least one person in my family who genuinely understood me. The next morning, I got another text from Mom. "We've been thinking about downsizing the SUV. Looking at something more practical. Just thought you should know." I stared at the message, surprised. Maybe they really were starting to understand. Sitting at my desk later, I reflected on everything. I hadn't just shown them a bank statement, I had shown them the reality of how their actions affected me. And maybe, just maybe, they were finally learning. Over the next few weeks, the changes were subtle but noticeable. I wasn't holding my breath for a complete transformation, but there were signs that my parents were starting to adjust their mindset. One evening, Mom called, sounding unusually upbeat. "Hey, Alex. Your dad and I were just talking, and we wanted to get your advice on something," she began. "Sure. What's up?" I asked, cautiously optimistic. "We're thinking about selling the SUV. It's just so expensive to maintain, and honestly, we don't really need something that big. Your dad found a used hybrid that's in good shape. We're considering it." I couldn't help but smile. "That's a smart move. Maintenance costs will be way lower, and the fuel savings will add up fast." She hesitated before speaking again. "We should have listened to you sooner. We just didn't see it. It's not too late to make better choices," I replied, feeling a bit of relief. A few days later, I dropped by their house to help with some paperwork for the sale. Dad looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. As I helped him go through the vehicle listing, he gave me a sidelong glance. "You know, I was stubborn," he admitted. "Thought it was my job to keep up appearances. Didn't think about the long-term cost. Your mom and I, we just wanted to feel like we'd made it, you know." I nodded. "I get it. You worked hard for what you have. But sometimes being smart with money doesn't mean settling, it means planning." He chuckled. "Guess I've got some planning to catch up on." After helping them list the SUV online, I headed back to my place. On the way, I called Chloe to update her. "They're actually selling the car?" she asked, sounding as surprised as I felt. "Yeah, and they're looking at something more practical. I think it's finally sinking in." "That's wild. I never thought I'd see Dad give up his status symbol." I laughed. Neither did I. That weekend, Chloe invited me over for dinner, wanting to catch up in person. As we set the table, she gave me a curious look. "Have they asked for money since the reunion?" "No," I replied, almost surprised by my own answer. "They've been pretty quiet about finances. Mostly just asking for advice." She smiled knowingly. "You cracked them. I think seeing that bank statement hit harder than they'll ever admit. They realize you weren't just being frugal, you were building a future." I shrugged. "I just hope it sticks." Chloe gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "You've made more progress in a month than I thought possible." They're actually thinking things through now. Later that night, I received an unexpected text from Dad. "Thinking about refinancing the mortgage. Interest rates are low. Would you take a look at the numbers for me?" I couldn't help but chuckle. For so long, they'd acted like I was clueless about money, and now here they were, asking for my input. I texted back. "Sure. Send me what you've got, and I'll see if it makes sense." Over the next week, I helped them run the numbers, comparing refinancing options. Dad seemed genuinely interested in learning the process, even taking notes, as I explained how different rates would affect the long-term cost. "Why didn't I think of this earlier?" he muttered at one point. "You never had to," I pointed out. "You always found a way to make it work, even if it wasn't efficient." Now you're looking at the big picture. He nodded slowly, as if the concept was finally making sense. One evening, Mom called just to chat. We're trying out some new budgeting apps, she said, almost proudly. That's great, Mom. Let me know if you need any tips, I replied. She paused. It's a bit embarrassing, learning all this now. You've been so responsible all along, and we just didn't see it. It's okay, I assured her. What matters is you're taking steps now. That weekend, we planned a family dinner at my place, a change from their usual invitation. I cooked a simple meal, and Chloe helped set up. When Mom and Dad arrived, they seemed genuinely relaxed, not the usual tense, image-conscious version of themselves. As we ate, Dad shared how the SUV sale went smoothly and how they were test driving the hybrid next week. Funny thing, Dad said with a wry smile. It feels good not having that weight on my shoulders. Didn't realize how much it was draining us. I nodded. Sometimes simplifying makes life better. Mom chimed in. I guess we just thought you were being difficult all these years. We didn't realize you were actually making smart choices. Chloe grinned at me from across the table. I knew she was thinking the same thing I was, progress. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. Alex, I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. You've got a good head on your shoulders. I should have seen it sooner. Hearing that hit me harder than I expected. I patted his shoulder, not wanting to make it too emotional. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't naive enough to think everything was magically fixed, but the shift was real. My parents were seeing me differently, respecting my choices rather than mocking them. And for once, I felt like an equal in my own family. As the weeks went by, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. It wasn't that my parents had transformed overnight, but their approach was different. Instead of ignoring financial realities, they were actually facing them, something I'd never thought possible. One evening, Mom called just to chat. She didn't bring up money or complain about bills, she just wanted to talk. How's work going? She asked, genuinely curious. Busy but good, I replied. We just launched a new software update. It went smoother than expected. That's great. You've always been good with tech stuff, she said with a warmth I hadn't heard in a long time. I smiled, appreciating the normal conversation. It wasn't overshadowed by guilt or obligation, just a simple catch-up. A few days later, Dad texted me a picture of the new car they bought, a used hybrid. Got it. Way better on gas. Thanks for the advice. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji, feeling a mix of pride and relief. They were actually following through on the changes they talked about. That weekend, Chloe invited me over to her place. As we sipped coffee on her porch, she looked at me thoughtfully. You seem lighter, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Lighter? Yeah. Less stressed. Happier. I think setting boundaries was the best thing you could have done. I nodded. It was hard, though. I didn't want to hurt them, but I couldn't keep being their safety net. They needed to see that. She smiled knowingly. And they did. I think seeing that bank statement made them realize you weren't the irresponsible one, they were. It just took them a while to get it. I couldn't deny it. My parents had spent years chasing status and appearances, but now they were slowly recognizing that it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't just the car, they were also cutting back on their dining expenses, choosing homemade meals more often. Chloe mentioned that Mom had even started a small vegetable garden in the backyard to save on groceries. One evening, Dad called and asked if I wanted to help with some yard work. I was a bit surprised. They usually hired someone for that. We're trying to cut down on expenses, he admitted sheepishly. Besides, it's good exercise. I agreed to come over, and we spent the afternoon trimming hedges and fixing a broken fence. To my surprise, Dad actually seemed to enjoy the work. I forgot how satisfying it is to do things yourself, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah. Plus, it saves money, I pointed out with a grin. He chuckled. True. You've been trying to tell us that for years, huh? Maybe just a little, I teased. After we finished, Mom brought out lemonade and joined us on the porch. I was thinking, she began cautiously. Maybe we could start planning family dinners at home instead of going out. It would save money and... I kind of miss cooking. I gave her an encouraging nod. That sounds like a great idea. Plus, homemade meals are always better. She smiled, seeming genuinely pleased. That night, as I was about to head home, Dad pulled me aside. Listen, Alex. He started, looking a bit uncomfortable. I know we haven't always been the best at listening to you. I was too wrapped up in my own pride to admit I was wrong. But I'm grateful you pushed us to see things differently. I didn't want to make it too emotional, so I just nodded. I'm glad you're trying, Dad. That's all I wanted. He patted my shoulder, and I could tell that for once, he actually meant it. Back at my apartment, I got a text from Chloe. Mom was talking about budgeting apps again. She downloaded one this time. I think it's finally sticking. I replied. That's good to hear. Maybe this is the turning point. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Dad. Hey, thinking about refinancing the house to lower the payments. Want to help me figure it out? I texted back. Sure, I can swing by tomorrow. It wasn't just about money, it was about shifting how they thought about their lives. Instead of constantly trying to appear successful, they were starting to appreciate the simple things, like cooking at home, doing their own yard work, and planning for the future. One evening, I got a call from Chloe, sounding unusually emotional. I just wanted to say I'm really proud of you, she said. I know it wasn't easy to confront them, but you did it. And because of that, they're finally changing. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Thanks, Chloe. I guess I didn't realize how much it was affecting me until I finally stood up for myself. She laughed softly. You deserve to live your life the way you want. You've always been the responsible one. Now they know it too. I hung up, feeling a deep sense of relief. It wasn't about being right. It was about finally being seen for who I was, without the judgment or condescension. My parents were starting to respect my choices, and that made all the difference. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I belonged in my own family, not as the cheap one, but as someone who made smart decisions and wasn't afraid to stick to them. I knew the journey wasn't over, but we were moving in the right direction. A month after the family reunion, things had settled into a new rhythm. My parents were no longer pressuring me for financial help, and surprisingly, they seemed more at ease with their new, less extravagant lifestyle. The change wasn't just in their spending habits, it was in their attitude. One evening, Dad invited me over to show off the hybrid car they had finally bought. Not bad, huh? He said, patting the hood proudly. I nodded, genuinely impressed. It's a great choice. Way better on gas, and way less expensive to maintain. He grinned, a little sheepish. I guess you were right all along. We just didn't see it. I thought saving was something you did when you couldn't afford nice things, not because you were planning for the future. That's the thing, I replied. It's not about not being able to afford it, it's about choosing not to spend unnecessarily. Mom came out with a tray of homemade cookies, a rare sight. I've been trying to bake more, she said proudly. You know, save money on snacks. Plus, it's kind of fun. I bit into a cookie, nodding approvingly. Tastes great. She smiled, and for once, it felt like there wasn't an unspoken tension hanging between us. That night, while Dad and I worked on fixing a loose panel on the porch, he paused, taking a breath. You know, Alex, I've been thinking about how things used to be, how we used to see you, he admitted. I glanced up, curious. We always thought you were just stubborn. Like you didn't want to be part of the family, refusing to go along with how we did things. But now I get it. You weren't being stubborn, you were being smart. I just couldn't see it through my own pride. His words took me by surprise. I hadn't expected him to admit that. I didn't want to feel like I was failing you, he continued. I guess I was just scared that if I didn't keep up appearances, I'd be letting everyone down. I put down the screwdriver and faced him. You weren't letting anyone down. You just didn't realize that living within your means is part of success. It doesn't mean you're not successful, it means you're being responsible. He nodded slowly, as if letting that sink in. When Chloe joined us later, she could sense the change too. Wow, Dad actually listened to you? She joked, but with a hint of pride in her voice. I smirked. Miracles happen. Dad gave us both a look, but his smile showed he wasn't offended. For once, it felt like we were on the same page. A few weeks later, Mom invited both Chloe and me for a family dinner. This time, it wasn't at a fancy restaurant but at their house, with a home-cooked meal. As we sat around the table, Dad spoke up, a bit hesitant but determined. Your mom and I have been thinking, maybe we should start putting some money away for emergencies. We're getting older, and well, it makes sense. I glanced at Chloe, who gave me a subtle thumbs up. That's a great idea, I said. There are some good retirement plans you can set up. I can help you look into them. Mom chimed in. We've also started cutting back on the club memberships. Realized we weren't really using them as much as we thought. I couldn't help but smile. I'm proud of you guys. You're making real changes. Mom looked a bit embarrassed but pleased. We should have listened to you years ago. I shrugged. Better late than never. As the evening went on, we shared stories from when Chloe and I were kids, moments when Dad's pride and Mom's social ambitions clashed with reality. We laughed about the time Dad bought a boat he couldn't even tow properly, and how Mom once tried to host a garden party only for it to get rained out. Chloe pointed at me. You were always the one saving up your allowance, while I spent mine on stupid stuff. I guess you always knew how to be practical. I grinned. Just didn't see the point in wasting money. Dad chuckled. Maybe if we'd been more like you, we wouldn't have needed your help so often. I could tell it was his way of admitting they'd leaned on me too much. It's in the past now, I replied, not wanting to dwell. What matters is where we go from here. The conversation shifted to more light-hearted topics, and for once, it felt like we were just a family, no financial burdens looming, no unspoken guilt. When I finally headed home that night, I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Chloe called me later, still buzzing from the evening. I've never seen them so humble, she said. Yeah. It feels like they're finally getting it, I replied. Credit goes to you. You didn't just hand them money, you showed them how to live responsibly. That's way more valuable. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I had spent so long feeling like the odd one out, but now, for the first time, it felt like they respected me, not just for my financial stability but for my choices and who I was. A few days later, Dad sent me a photo of the first payment receipt for the new car. No financing, just a simple cash payment. Paid off. Thanks for showing us how to do it right. I saved the message, knowing it marked a real turning point. Looking back, I realized that standing up for myself hadn't just changed how they saw me, it changed how they saw themselves. And while I knew there might still be challenges ahead, I was finally confident that we could handle them together, as a family.